All right, we're live. So, welcome to Run Wild with Us. Ask us anything. I'm Lisa Kastner. I am the founder and executive editor of Running Wild and RIZE presses. And I'm typically here with a few of our fellow editors with you on Thursdays between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time. And we're here to answer any old questions that you may have. It can be around publishing, editing, creative writing, what I lovingly call content creation and distribution, anything. Why is my hair red? I mean, I've got a really basic answer for that, but anyway. But yeah, feel free, ask us whatever you like. If you're watching this and it is not Thursday between 5 and 6 p.m. Pacific time, 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, it's all good. Go ahead, toss your questions into the comments section of whatever venue you may be watching this. We actually broadcast this across Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube. So you've got plenty of different opportunities to watch this again live or the recordings. And actually, we've got a pretty decent library of recordings that you can choose from to check out. So usually I'm here with Ben White and or Peter Wright, two of our key acquisition and content editors. Sometimes we're joined as well by Amy Hardy, who is another author and editor in our group, and Cody Cisco, who is also our acquisitions editor, our core acquisition editor for Rise, and also one of our general editors. So, as I mentioned, we absolutely are totally open to hearing whatever it is that you like to talk about. Hey, Peter, how you doing, man?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm awesome. Always great to see you.
Love being here.
Excellent. Oh yeah, and honestly, when you're not around, we totally miss you. It's like we have this natural triad with you, me, and Ben.
And
Ben.
then,
Yeah. So like when
Almost
one
a
of us
heart.
is,
It's almost a heart, but
it's
not
almost a
quite.
heart. It's when we've got Cody that it becomes a heart, right? Then we've got like all 4 points covered. So very cool. CJ Grant says, "Good evening. I've missed a few weeks. I'm home tonight, and I hope everything's going great. CJ, as always, it's fabulous to see you. Welcome. So, guys, what's going on? What's new and exciting, or old and exciting, or old and not exciting? I don't know.
what do you say, Ben?
I started a new novel. I'm editing a new novel. Well,
Ooh,
I've opened it.
nice. I know that
There's
feeling.
interesting.
It's got to start. It's got to start somewhere.
Yeah, you've got to at least open the file. Absolutely.
And I have talked to the author of that long pending novel that's everyone's waiting on.
It's
So
coming, man. The one that, what is it,
don't
like
start spiraling,
F you in your finger, or what's it called?
NFG.
Oh, I'm sorry, NFG.
Nobody effing important. He may want that as his author's name. Nobody effing important. But I'm all
That's
for it.
actually pretty funny, man.
You get the best titles, Ben. I swear.
All right, seriously. Now wait, he came in with that title though, right? Like you guys didn't make it up along the line, did you?
G, no F's given.
No, stop. Oh yeah, that's right. It started off with no F's given. Yeah, that's right.
I just shortened it to NFG so Google Docs could lose it.
Nice. Well, now we're going to have it as NFG because then people will be like, what the hell? It doesn't mean what I think it does it?
It always does.
It always does. That's awesome. How about you, Peter? What's going on?
I am still editing the international book, which is coming along really well. The changes he's made have been really exciting, interesting.
Awesome. Okay.
I was able to buy time with my other authors because my second author, one of my authors, said, "Here's the story. There's still a few tweaks to do. So a few tweaks I want to do, but here's what I've done so far." I'm like, dude, fix the tweaks and then give
Right?
it back to me. You got time. Don't worry about it. Like, don't give me a 2 tiers of a 3-tiered wedding cake. I mean, that makes no sense.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't know where that image came from.
No, I totally feel you. I just finished like doing like the line confirming line edits on 2 novels and then sent them back to the authors for like if they want to do a final read through. And then I'm still doing like at least a first pass for 2 more. And I forewarned I basically pulled a Ben. I opened it and I started going through it, and then it became like 10 o'clock on Sunday, and I was like, oh, I need to go to bed. And this week, I've been working until like from 4 o'clock in the morning, sometimes 3 o'clock in the morning until 9, 10 o'clock at night, and it is not involved editing. So, and thankfully, this author set up time with me, like just to kind of talk about like what's the process, blah blah blah. And I warned her, I'm like, so I kind of have a lot on my plate. So it may be like a little while before you hear from me because what I typically do is I'll take my weekends and I'll just say, okay, today is I'm working purely on whatever. And I just basically sit down with a big pot of French roast coffee and I just start going, you know. So I think I got through 40 pages, and I'm 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 well, I'm not hoping. I'm gonna really knock out more over the weekend. So thankfully, it's a 3-day weekend.
I got a question for you.
Uh-huh.
I do 5 back and forth. You know, I work on draft 2, 4, and then do 5.5 before I submit it.
Wow.
Which draft is your favorite? The second one that they get back to you, or the final one?
Oh man.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. For me, it totally it depends because
Yeah.
some like so like the authors that like they have thematic issues, and like I sit down with them and I'm like, hey, you may want to be aware of, blah blah blah, or like here's an opportunity for a theme that you could have going through the work, and they really take the feedback to heart. It's the version I get back where it really, like, now it's really it's totally elevated, right? Like it we still need to do at least one more back and forth to do like more like a line edit, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But it's clear that now they're like, oh my God, I can actually see what my story not only can become, but has become. Is that, I don't know if that
Yeah,
makes sense, but
that's cool.
yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And it's not every work that's like that. It's, because some you get it and it's more, I think Ben's described this really well in the past. Like they'll submit something and then there are like, it's like there are these valleys, right? Like solid, 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 and all of a sudden it's like two, and you're like, whoa, I have no idea what's going on. Wait. And like you need to either work with them um to rewrite those sections, or really it's more like they just got obsessed with the backstory and they don't realize that they don't need this, and it's
Mm-hmm.
actually taking away from the story. So you kind of have to like work with them to take out that section. And some authors, when you point it out to them, right, like this really doesn't work and this is why, right, like this is the arc that you've developed, and what you have here and here and here, it doesn't add to it. Some authors, as soon as you point it out, they see it and they're like, oh shit, right? And then they come back with a much more solid rewrite. And others will just argue, And actually, it's funny. I think, actually, Peter, I think one of your authors, when I did an interview with him, like when it came out, he actually pointed out the fact that, and I can't remember which author this is, so um,
Better that way.
which yeah, it's probably better that way. um, he said that, like, so he thought he was done, right? Like, you'd given this feedback and you'd pointed out there were some themes and there were some valleys, you know, all that kind of thing. And his wife was like looking over his shoulder and was like looking at the notes and went, yeah, you don't understand what he's telling you, right? And she like rephrased the feedback, and then he could finally see the valleys. But because what he had done is he had just basically gone through it and provided arguments as to why he was right and you were wrong, right? And then his wife looked at it and went, no, Peter's right. This is what he's telling you. And he was like, oh my God. Like, it was like he was all of a sudden like embarrassed, like, oh shit, like I effed up. And then went back and totally redid it. And he was like, you know, thankfully he hadn't sent it back to you yet with the, no, I'm right, because, you know, blah 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 blah, you know.
Yeah.
So those are the ones where and I think we've all been doing this long enough that we've all had authors like that. And sometimes, at least for me, sometimes I have the energy to go back and say, okay, I get what you're saying, but I need you to look at it this way. And other times I'm like, I don't care anymore. I'm so tired. Like, it's good enough, right? Like, I'm not going for perfection. And if you are this hard-headed about it, I am not going to go into this argument. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
That's funny.
And how about you guys? What's your favorite, like, version, I guess?
I'll go through. I look for flow of the story, and I'll get halfway through before I invite the author in, and I say, okay, start to follow me, and if you know, let me know that I'm making sense to you, and we'll see the changes, the exceptions, or the rejections, or the conversations we need to have about certain parts that need to be hacked out of there. But it's so that gives me a good half a novel head start. So when I hit the end, they're still coming in behind me, and by that time we've agreed on a process, and we know each other's process. And then the best ones then are just me going back and seeing what they've accepted or rejected, and making sure it still flows. So my second time through is really content. It's probably pretty close to being polished. Then my third time through is the grammar and the punctuation. Do we want to leave that word misspelled? Yeah, we do. That's intentional. So we leave that. You know, those kind of detail parts. But so that's a good one that goes through on a natural process. So it's at the third time through, with conversation with the author, of course, as we do it. So we both have looked at it 3 times, and so that's like I say, in the best case, that's good. Now other times there's been, like Lisa was saying, Peter, and it's something I'll put it in, you know, something I've heard you say about the good writing, and that good writing being the clouds. And then all of a sudden it rains, and you're flowing down the river somewhere. But in my poetry language, I would just call it lost energy. And when you lose energy, you're going to lose the reader, because they're going to skim through. We were talking about last week about make sure you just cut out all the things that readers skim anyway. You don't need it. But then there's, you know, the others are where it doesn't flow. There's chunks, there's changes that don't make sense. That suddenly why didn't you have them go cross country? Why did you have them go to Kansas before they went to Ohio?
Mm,
Why would they? You got to put it in order, and those kind of details.
mm-hmm.
Um, and the Wild Bill became Crazy Pecos. Why did you change his name? Oh, that's just another draft I was working on.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, I caught it. That's not going to work. But
Mm-hmm.
those things show up a lot more than you would think because authors work on so many versions at the same time. They forget the name of the character or a character, and it changes. Who is that? Oh yeah, that was the earlier version. Sorry, Ben. But but then of course the worst case is when you're ghostwriting the whole thing.
Mm. How about you, Peter?
My favorite draft is the the third one. After I get version 1, I do my work. I send it back as version 2, and I get version 3. That's my favorite draft. Reason
Mm,
why is because everything that caught my eye, well, not everything, but a lot of things that caught my eye and made me pause are cleaned up and reimagined and made colorful and more real in my eyes as the reader. And
mm-hmm.
it goes from like your first car as a teenager to the third draft being, a pretty decent Mustang, got a little wobbly tire, needs paint kind of thing. So when
Mm,
we get to the fifth draft, we got that hot rod, lightning bolts down the side, grease lighting kind of thing.
mm,
But that's where it all comes together. The third draft is where I start really, really like this isn't the right word, but dancing with the story. I'm rolling along with the flow, as Ben said.
mm-hmm.
And so many things, with good authors that let's like scratch it, with authors that are open to criticism, put it
Mm,
that way. That the changes they make, I rarely go back to the previous version to see what changed or what didn't change. It's
mm-hmm.
just the things that caught my eye that still whirlpool me into the story. I'm like, why am I thinking about this when I want to keep reading? Kind of thing.
Mm,
But the third draft is where everything really starts to hum.
mm-hmm.
It's the most fun because they're getting it. They're learning. They're getting the picture. They're getting the big picture, the small picture, the line edits, the themes, as well as everything else in the story. So
Mm,
my favorite is the third one. The fifth one is always at the pass through. Did I miss anything? Did you miss anything? Kind of thing. But that third draft is just the one I love the most. So
mm. Yeah, totally. I could totally see that. Absolutely. Um, Margaret Buchanan says, "Hey guys, hey Margaret, as always, fabulous to see you." I actually, so I got it. I literally got a question, by an author we recently published, and it's I want to say an hour. Actually, it was an hour ago. And this is a question I get a lot. Well, not a lot. I get it sometimes, and I figured there would be benefit in kind of explaining how books get acquired by retailers, if that makes sense. So her question was, she's getting messages from folks that they want to buy the book on bookshop.org, but it's already sold out. Is there a way IPG, so IPG is our distributor, can push more copies there? So I'm going to take 100 steps back, right? And explain like how are books acquired by retailers? Like how does this actually work, right? So we submit to IPG, to our distributor, all the information about the book, right? All the author information, the back jacket copy, the ISBNs, right? The name of the book, when it's going to be published, blah, blah, blah. And then I actually present to their sales team. So they have an international sales team that I present to two or three times a year. It depends on how frequently they decide they want to have a sales conference. And during that, I present what we call a one pager. And the one pager is the book cover, the title, the author's, probably usually a briefer version of the author's bio, a briefer version, like it's a log line. So log line is like a 1 to 2 sentence description, or like something to like catch your attention, right, about the story. Back jacket copy, again, it's not a summary, right? It's more of like something that leads you into the story, so that if you are looking for something to read, you're like, "Ooh, this sounds really interesting. I need to read this," right? And then any wins this may have already gotten. So did it get a starred review from Kirkus? Did like um did indie reviewers say that this was like a groundbreaking work, right? Things like that. Stuff that enables the sales team, that sales force, to use as ways into retailers to help sell the work, right? So these become, what does they want to highlight? Did the author hire, one of the biggest, a huge publicity uh, company? Like I had one author, when I mentioned that he had hired a specific publicist, the sales team actually got really excited and they were like, no way, oh my God, we love her, right? So, seriously. So it's, things like anything that'll get them engaged. Okay, so now it's like, well, what does that have to do with anything about bookshop.org not having purchased the stuff? So what happens is all this information then is fed to retailers. It's fed electronically. They get they actually go to a website where they then can look up all the books that are coming out in the coming months. And it includes this similar information, right? And then the sales force actually then also goes to retailers like bookshop.org, believe it or not, like Amazon, like Barnes and Noble, like your local bookstore, like Target, and they'll present like, hey, these are books that are coming out from our publishers, right, in these coming months. At that juncture, what happens is a couple things happen. One, those retailers then decide, hey, you know what? I want to buy 5 of these, 10 of these, or, my specific readers, they're not going to care. They're not going to, want this. We're not the audience for this thing. But it also, a lot of these retailers nowadays, it automatically shows up on their website. So what I mean by that is, let's say you've got a book coming out. Well, actually, okay, how about this? I actually do have a book coming out. I have Family Pack coming out in October, right? If you go and search Family Pack and Lisa Kastner on Barnes and Noble, bookshop.org, Amazon, right? You name it, all of them, it's going to pop up. I had nothing to do with that. How that happened was because IPG has that automatic feed to all of those online retailers, and it automatically pushes, right, so that anybody who visits their website can find that book. Okay, so at that point, anyone who goes to bookshop.org, if they want to, if they're curious about Family Pack, they can go and, honestly, like right now, if I go to bookshop.org and if I do a search on me and, Family Pack, it's the very first one that shows up, but it shows up as a pre-order. Now, if it's a book that's already out, and it's a pre-order because the book's not available yet, it doesn't come out till October. If it's already out, it'll show up as a back order. And all that means is, it means that bookshop.org, the retailer, they've made this available for anybody who wants to actually buy the book, but they don't have it in stock, right? So if it's a pre-order, all this means is anyone who wants to order my book can go ahead, they click on pre-order, they pre-order the book, and then when it's available, boom, they get it, right? So that lets bookshop.org know that they need to order this book. If it's showing up as a back order, which is the same thing as being out of stock, all that means is that it can still be ordered, right? It just means that bookshop.org, they'll get the order placement for, hey, I want Family Pack, and they're not going to miss the sale, right? Like, they want the book, they want the sale as much as anyone else, right? So all that means is they're then going to reach out to IPG and say, hey, I've got an order for Family Pack, and this is where I need it shipped to. Now, it's up to bookshop.org, they may get like 5 or 10 orders, and they don't happen to have the book in stock. And that's okay, because what they may do is say, wow, I've got 10 orders. You know what? I think I'm going to order 20 of these from IPG. And then that way I have some in stock. And, then the books will be sent out to those people who actually ordered the book. Right. So that's how things work. So it's actually, whenever an author comes to me and says, hey, it's showing up as out of stock, or it's showing up as on back order, I just typically recommend them to tell their friends to just go ahead and order it, because that's only to the author's advantage. And honestly, it probably would take as much time for whoever's ordering it to get it, whether it's on back order or if it's already in stock. It's kind of like 6 one, half dozen the other. Maybe there's a couple of days variation, but when those orders are placed by retailers, our distributor is typically very, very responsive. So I don't know. I hope that helps. And I hope that made sense. And if anyone has any like follow-up questions about it, feel free to reach out to me or put it in the chat or whatever. But when you think about it, it makes sense, right? So yeah. So that was a complete tangent, but it is a question that I do get a lot. So yeah, so there you go. And I honestly think about it as if you were the one who had your own bookstore, right? How do you think it would work, right? So kind of flip it, and you'll get a better sense of it. So yeah, cool. All right. Well, we've actually had a pretty decent number of people who are signed in. Hey guys, like I said before, go ahead, toss any old questions you may have in the comments section of whatever venue you may be watching this. And excuse me, we're more than happy to answer them. We just take turns, as if you didn't already notice. So anyway, how are you guys doing? And have you guys got any like questions in the last week or couple of weeks that people might find interesting?
Not really. I mean, my biggest issue is the international novel that I'm working on, and understanding and adapting to international style as opposed to CMOS. I've had to do back and forth on that, and it works once you get used to it. Once you get used to it, you really feel the flow. You really enjoy the story because you're reading a little bit outside the box, because it's not the normal American version, but the European version. I mean, it's very interesting. The flow works once you get used to it. Yeah.
Cool. How about you, Ben?
Well,
Ben.
One thing that was released this week was How We Were Before, and I missed the interview with the author, but we're gonna redo it on June 8th because I missed it. That's why.
That's exactly why.
But How We Were Before, it's out now. It has been released. It's Jonathan Kravitz's book, and a really interesting look into how one tragic event can impact not only a family but a whole community for years. And it's very, very well written and just a good story. But so look for that. Add that to your summer reading list, and look for us after June 8th. Because I don't know what happened Saturday, Lisa, but I missed Saturday. All the way around, I missed it.
You were not feeling well. You're allowed to not feel well. So
yeah, well, I think it was just the some of it was getting through that other novel.
Oh,
I'm going to use that as an excuse the rest of my life.
Dang, damn it! That's okay. I mean, I interviewed Jonathan, and it was funny because like then when you hadn't shown up after like in the first like 2-3 minutes, I was like, just so you know, he may have forgotten. And Jonathan was like, what? And I'm like, yeah, he does it every once in a while. Don't worry about it. We'll just do it over. And the poor guy was like, oh, I was so looking forward to the like. So when you came back and you were like, oh my God, I totally forgot. Yeah, let's do it again. He was like, yay.
Good. Good.
So
There's the
other,
link for it.
huh?
There's the links for it. You posted them. That's good. Everybody.
Oh yeah.
Other than that, it's like I say, just those two novels coming back around. Uh, I have started looking at the short stories,
Mhm.
and I went back to May 31st. There was one lingering there from 2023, and I was reading it and said, "This isn't bad. This is okay. This is good.
Uh-oh.
This is all right." And then I looked at the ratings, and Peter has said thumbs down. I don't like it. So wait a minute, Peter, what's wrong? I got to talk to Peter. I don't want to. Maybe I'm not healthy.
Oh my God.
I got to double check. I need to read this, give it a deeper read.
Wait, is this one we already accepted or?
No, it was a short story that it came up in the dates that I was looking for, and
Oh.
it must have with 2023, so it was before. I'm not sure why it came up because I put in June 1st, but or maybe it was June 1st, but it was one that was still lingering, and we really didn't look at it, or I didn't look at it. Peter did.
I might not have been feeling well that day.
It's going around. I'm contagious.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
gonna be my excuse moving forward. Anytime I go against the grain. I wasn't feeling well that day. Well, I think we only have like, oh wow, we only have 4 left that still need to be assigned. So we're getting there.
The novels, yeah,
Mhm.
full links. Yeah,
Mhm.
but that said, the short stories are still open. I'll look anything that comes in before June 1st. I will take a look at. So if you got a short story that you wanted to have considered, submit it through Submittable, Running Wild Press Submittable.
Now I need to see. Let's see how many. Because as soon as I'm done, my personal goal is for us to finish our backlog, right? At least get all of them assigned, and then I have 2 novels that I personally have to finish, but then I also I'm gonna have to start working on the novella anthologies, and right now we only have 76 between both Rise and Running Wild's novella anthology. Um, so
That's down, isn't it?
yeah, we usually have like at least 100.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, so if you're someone who has a novella, and a novella, I define a novella as like 40,000 word, between like what 15,000 and 40,000 words. Um, then please feel free to go ahead and send it in. Um, and I'm gonna probably, because honestly, I've already done the novella anthologies through 2025. So since we're still in 2024, I'm probably not going to start working on the novellas until um I want to say like the beginning of 2025. So you've got time, but if you are working on a novella that you're like, oh, I've always wanted to have this published, blah blah blah, um, then I'd say work on just double checking with yourself or your friends or whomever that it's where you want it to be, like it's in a good place, and definitely send it in. I am also going to comment that I have no idea why, but lately we've started getting authors who we published in our novella anthologies who, for whatever reason, like to reach out to me every couple months and ask me if I will publish their novella on its own. And the only way that we would probably do that is if it sold really well or it got like exemplary reviews, like something that would justify us actually publishing it as a standalone. We recently published one that was it was like a borderline novella novel, but it actually isn't a novel. It was actually a memoir um, about her struggle with uh, paranoid schizophrenia. So you know, again, it has to. There has to be something about it that would justify us publishing it as a standalone. So if when you look at it and you don't see a way to either expand it naturally so that it would be more of a novel, or you know it didn't get exemplary reviews or whatever, don't bother reaching out to me and asking me and insisting that we publish it as a standalone, because I don't we don't have a reason to do it, if that makes sense. I don't know. Hey, Peter, we lost you on screen. Are you okay?
I'm doing some changes to the room. Gotta get some better lighting.
Oh, okay. All right.
I'm here.
Just checking. I just
I don't
wanted
have
to
the
make
cool lighting
sure.
you and Ben have, so I'm just dealing with rudimentary.
No one has the cool lighting that Ben has. I mean, come on.
It's kind of in my face over there.
Yeah.
It's so sunny.
He's always
But
got like
that said, Lisa, that they still have the copyright that they can, if they find a publisher who'll do it as a standalone.
yeah, they
They
can.
can, of course.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm.
We'd like to have it recognized that we've published it first, but
Exactly.
Agreed. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's 100%. And it's the same thing with like the short stories, right? Like if we publish one of your short stories and you have a short story collection that includes it, and we elect not to publish it, you're welcome to submit it elsewhere and have it published. You know, why not? It can't hurt.
Yeah.
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 It's a little weird if you choose to self-publish it. But again, it in some ways it's like, hey, kind of six one half dozen the other. Just be aware that you know, you legally you should acknowledge that it was what was originally published with us or whomever else, right? And then just take it from there. So cool. Wow, we've only got like what 22 minutes left, something like that.
Yeah.
Wow. So don't forget, guys, you're more than welcome always to go ahead and toss your questions into the comment section of whatever format you may be following us on. Oh, I forgot to ask Ben and Peter, both of you, this. So I've been working with with Ruben Teehee on a basically like a 3 or 4 day, something like that, um uh uh conference where like you have your workshop leader and people would pre-submit like 20 pages of something, whatever, and then you have the group uh critique, and obviously the critique of whoever's the leader. So I didn't know if you guys would be interested in it. We would be doing this out of Mexico, and he's already found a like a go away spa. So during the day we would be doing the critiques, and then in the afternoon and evening you would just basically be hanging out in the spa and stuff like that. So we talked about it briefly or earlier this month, and he's been finalizing like the details for it. So um I just wanted to put that bug in your ear in case it's something that you might be interested in doing. So
Yeah, for sure. That sounds really cool if we can make it work.
yeah,
Awesome.
right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. and it sounds like he's cut a deal with this one spa, where I think they're basically gonna hold the whole venue for us during that period. So yeah.
How many writers are you thinking of inviting or
Um,
allowing?
I think he was. We were originally talking about like I think 6 to 10 per like workshop in total. So then it would beyond that it would basically depend on how many of us there would be.
Right.
Um, I'd have to go back and look at how large the venue is. I mean, obviously that's also another like I guess like limitation.
Hmm.
Um, but like we could always go just say, look, we only want like 6 to 8 or something like that. Because in my mind, what I thought we would do is talk about like these are the workshop leaders and this is what they've done, right? And there are this many seats with each workshop leader available, and like these are the kinds of and like the whole point of even mentioning like these are the things they've done, um because like let's say someone, like Peter, you've edited what, two or three books that were named best of the year by Kirkus, right?
Yeah.
All three of us have done starred reviews, right? We've all three done books that were called groundbreaking, right? So like mentioning those items, so that like let's say someone like they're more literary, or they're more mystery, or they're more thriller, or they're more women's fiction or whatever, they would have a sense of what our what we've already accomplished, so that they'll say, oh, I'd love to be named one of the best of the year. Then I want to work with Peter. You know what I mean? Like, so I thought we would, like bring that up, up front, and then that way again, people would have a sense of what we bring to the table, and then we would decide on how many seats, like how many people could actually be in our group. Does
Right.
that make sense? You know?
Yeah, I mean, it could almost turn into sort of residency where the workshop leaders could give not readings but like mini classes, like well, lecterns or whatever you call it, to the whoever wants to show up for the talk.
Yeah, totally.
Hmm.
Absolutely. And like I don't know about you guys, but like some of my favorite I mean, they were really workshops because it wasn't necessarily part of my residency for my MFA, but like when I went to Ohio, when I went to Breadloaf, like the workshop leader would start with like, here are the rules of engagement for, workshopping a piece. So that it was like, so you had a certain amount of structure associated with
Hmm.
it. And then, and to your point, they would also use that as an opportunity to focus on a specific um, area of craft, right? Uh, or use it as a way of, like if someone had certain issues in their piece that were thematic, like kind of pointing out like how would you figure this out, right? And how can you address it, like stuff
Hmm.
like that. So yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Mhm.
My favorite word about that is sus. You got to suss this theme out. Because what's is it, writers automatically or instinctively put these themes in their story and they don't realize it. That's one of the most fun things I've ever realized about editing is that the elements are always there. It's just that
Mm,
it takes an editor to pull out or to bring them to the top and point them out. And says, you do this here, you do this here, and then you do it again here. So you come almost connect the dots for them, and that lights the fire in their eyes. That's what I think
mm.
is cool. It's already there.
No, yeah, totally. Or like when I've had one again back in the day when were in school, and they would work like a short story collection, and like one of them, it was I'm pretty sure it was a National Book Award winner, but it was actually it was published as if it was a novel, but in reality what he had done is it was a short story collection that was thematic. And so the workshop instructor who wrote this, you know, he basically just sat down and pointed out, like, look, you know, if you want to figure out how to do something like this, read it and then see, like, so how were these dots connected, right? And like, how was this made into a theme, you know? And then you can figure out how you can do that as well, right? So same thought process, Peter, is what you just described, you know. I honestly, sorry, go ahead.
It was just there's a I had a friend who flowcharted out a comedian once. You know, but if you listen to comedians, stand-up comedians on the stage, they will start with a joke, and then they'll joke, and then they'll refer back to that first joke, and it becomes even funnier because you already know, yeah, that vision is back now, but it's back on top of those other jokes, and then joke, and they'll refer back to it again, and they build on it, and that's the triangulation that Peter's talking about. Is you've got this important scene. It doesn't come across as important until it is important. Oh, that's why that was in there, and it's the same way with the comedians telling their jokes on the stage, and you'll hear them always refer back to a joke they said something else some other time, and the good ones anyway. The ones that aren't funny, don't listen to them.
Yeah. The ones that aren't, they don't do that. The ones that aren't funny, they don't do that.
Yeah. But it kind of builds because they're on stage telling a story for the most part anyway. It's storytelling with just a humorous point, but it's still storytelling, and it drives home their points that they're making because it refers back to the vision that they've already given you. And this is why I gave it to you in the first place, is because now you know why it's funny. And it's kind of a circular process through the stand-up routine, and it's a circular process through the telling through a novel. I think, or it can be. It doesn't need to be, but it can be.
No, that's cool. That's a great.
Now you're thinking about comedians, aren't you? It's like whatever you think of Bill Cosby. This is the example that came to my mind when he's talking about the cavemen who got tired of eating bushes, and so they said, well, these cavemen ate bushes for years and years and years, and then one day they said, hey, let's have some meat, and so they were going to kill a saber-toothed tiger, and so they snuck up on the saber-toothed tiger, and he turned around and he got after him. The saber-toothed tiger got after the caveman, and then the saber-toothed tigers were talking. They said, what are they doing now? What were they were sneaking up on me, but what are they doing now? Right now they're eating bushes. So it circles back to them eating bushes. But anyway, that's the point. For what it's worth.
Well, novel I edited recently is it's really interesting. It one of those novels that is a memoir in disguise, because you know what happened to the author. He's just kind of making it a story, fictional story, for whatever reason. But he put this scene where he's driving down from New York to Florida, and they make a stop and they see the Cuban refugees. This is in the early '80s. Cuban refugees in the camps off the highways and under the overpasses and everything like that. He spends a great deal of time explaining and imagining and drawing this picture of what's going on there and how he mentally communicates with one of the Cubans. And then they go on and he's completely forgotten about it. It's never talked about again. And you think about that and he goes, why did he put that in there? I mean, I know what happened to him. I know that he said, pull over, Dad. I want to see this thing. So Dad pulled over and he put it in his book. He's like, why did he put it in his book? Why is it there? Why is it there? And I go, because they're displaced. And his whole story is about how he has been displaced, first from his mother, then from his father, then from the friend that he learned to treat as a father. He's displaced. So I pointed it out to him. I said, this is exactly the theme of the book. This is why this scene is there, is because this character has been displaced throughout his entire life. And I'm sure the author didn't know, had any idea why he pointed that out, made that such a big deal, made that such a focus, when it was actually the theme of his story. I mean, it just basically painted the entire book, entire novel, based on that one scene. And I'm really
Wow.
excited to see what he comes back with. I really want to see what he comes back with. So yeah, I dig.
No, and that's actually I think it's an excellent point. So
Yeah, I got an image like that in a novel that I'm redoing right now. It's actually the first novel I ever wrote, and I know exactly what I put in there, and I know exactly why I put it in there. But now I know exactly why I put it in there, what the reflections of it are for the character of the story. So, and when I put it in there, I had no idea. I was doing the same thing as this author was doing with his story. But now, knowing what I know why it's there, and I can fix it.
Did he know why, Peter?
Yeah.
If you would ask him what the theme is, would he have told you that?
No, I haven't. No, he hasn't asked me yet. I'm curious to see what he comes back with. He's still on his third draft.
Oh, okay. Got it.
I started reading by accident actually a couple of days ago when I was working on the novel I'm working on. I'm like, wow, this is really good. So it's the third draft that I love.
That's awesome. I admit sometimes I don't know my themes until the reviewers come back and they basically tell me. And I'm like, yeah, oh my God, that's totally
We're like, oh, I see you got it. Okay, good for you. You got it.
Right. Like, and it's funny because I don't know when you guys are being interviewed and people are like, so what do you want to share about the story? Like that more times than not, I mind blank. Like I'm like, huh? Like I could tell them the log line, you know what I mean? Like I could tell them like the 2-sentence version or whatever, but like there are certain questions that it's more like when you're having that dialogue and someone is like, oh, this is a critical character, blah blah blah. And actually, a lot of times I figure it out when the editor tells me. Like Peter, when you and Ben tell me, like, do you know this about what you just did? And I'm like, oh, oh, oh yeah, yes, of course I knew that. Anyone would know that. It's so obvious. Give me a break. But anyway, wow, we've only have 8 minutes left. So guys, if you're watching and it's between 5 and 6 on Thursday Pacific time or 8 and 9 p.m. Eastern time, just go ahead, pop your question into the comments section, and we are more than happy. I'll repeat the question and we'll take turns. Oh, Margaret asks, does Kirkus Reviews select novels randomly or does the publisher assign them? So that's actually a complicated question. Because it's not just Kirkus, it's basically all the major reviewers. So like Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, I think it's called Indie Reviewers, and there are like 2 or 3 others that they're considered like they're the industry go-tos. You can submit the works for free, right? And then they elect whether or not they're going to review it or not. And then Kirkus, Publishers Weekly, and I think it's Indie Reviewer. It's something like that. They also have an offering. It's Forward Reviews. That's what I'm thinking of. Forward Reviews. They all 3 also have an offering where you can pay for them to hire someone to come in and do a review. And then it doesn't mean that it's gonna be a positive review. It just means that you basically just got put at the top of the list, and they'll actually review it, and you have an opportunity to read the review beforehand, before it actually goes to print. Now, for the paid review, the one nice thing about them is that typically all 3, like if you do pay for it, they'll try to put in at least one nice word in it that you can use. So even if they hate it and they're like, this is the most boring thing I've ever read, they'll say like, this is incredibly the most boring thing I've ever read. So then you can just quote, this is incredibly or incredible, like, or whatever, right?
The
So
binding of this book is perfect, right?
yeah, and then you can just say it's perfect, right? Like, so you might be surprised at the number of people who actually do that. But anyway, so so it's kind of like I wouldn't say half and half, but they both do it. The other thing to be aware of is like, and we get pinged for this all the time. Like Kirkus and Kirkus and Publishers Weekly will ping me about this. Like, hey, we gave this one book a great review, and we wondered if you wanted to buy some ads, and or like we're gonna do a special in like this a summer edition of like Kirkus Review magazine, and we want to feature this because we gave it a starred review, and really what they're saying is if you give us like $600 or $800 or $1,000, we'll feature this as a part of our summer review. They're just not uh, they don't overtly state that. um so sometimes honestly, like I'll send it to the author so the author's aware that this offer's been made, and so if they want to go forward with it, then they can. um because it doesn't actually guarantee anything. All it means is that, I mean, it's like buying an ad in your local newspaper or buying an ad in a magazine. That's really what it's the equivalent of. So um it's your choice whether you take advantage of it or not. I hope that made sense. Guys, what's been your experience with like Kirkus or Publishers Weekly and the like, out of curiosity?
I haven't had any dealing with them at all.
No?
No.
What's that?
Well, I did get a 50% off offer once from Kirkus. I said, well, if I don't take that, I'm saving 100%.
That's great.
It's just a good business decision.
All I know is I get a couple of my books were reviewed by them and they did pretty good. But they don't let me out of my cage very often, so I don't really get out that much to actually study or learn about Kirkus.
I see. Yeah, and they like, it's so funny because everyone's it's like an auto-generated, I guess, email, and the sales guy whose email address it comes from, like I'll get this generic thing, and I'm like, but they won't tell me what the review's for. It just says your book has been selected, blah blah blah. And I reply, I'm like, okay, but we published like 30 to 40 books a year, so I don't know what we're talking about. and then inevitably that's when the sales guy replies and says, oh, hey Lisa, how you doing? This is like auto generated, and oh, it's for it's for like
NFG.
Curtis, and yeah, NFG or Lachi's book or Curtis Smith's, and sometimes when they send it out, like it used to be they only sent it to us when they got a starred review, and lately they've been sending us these offers when the books didn't, they got a stellar review, but it wasn't starred, which was really weird to me. And so I kind of like pointed out, like, well, you gave us a great review, but like it's not starred. How did you select it for this special edition? And then I usually don't get an answer, but anyway. Or it's one of those wishy responses, you know what I mean? Like, well, we loved it, and then it's like trail off.
In LinkedIn the other day.
Oh yeah.
Hey, how about your book? I said, well, which one? At least look up a title. It made me feel better.
Right? Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. When they start to realize, like, oh, you mean you're a real publisher? Like, you're not. This isn't. I didn't just do this out of I didn't go to UPS or I didn't go to, yeah. So anyway, Margaret, that was an entirely too long answer to your incredibly brief question. So sorry about that. Wow, with that, okay, so we're actually a little over time. As always, huge thanks to everybody who joined us and asked great questions. We love, love, love your questions. Ben and Peter, as always, it's fabulous to have you guys here. And I will actually, so next week I need to figure out if we're going to be doing this because next week I actually will be at the Horror Writers Association StokerCon's conference. So I am going to put this on the calendar. As far as I'm aware so far, I don't think I'm on a panel at this hour, but I don't think they've actually published the final the final conference agenda yet. So we'll say for now we'll be here. But that just as a heads up, that might change. So anyway, have a fabulous holiday weekend. Thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time.